Guys, Zack here, and this is my review of the Book of Bill. Okay, so it's been a hot minute since I've done a review on a book. So if you guys don't know, there's currently a new Gravity Falls book out called The Book of Bill, and first and foremost, there's two versions of this. Well, technically three, but there's two versions of this book. There is the standard one, which has a red cover, and the Barnes & Noble exclusive one, which has a gold cover and more content. I have the gold one because the gold one has all, I'm pretty sure it's the definitive version. It has all the stuff in it that you would want from it. In case the Book of Bill is interesting. So first things first, there's a little thing here that says that it is travels to dimensions that are best suited for older readers. I should mention something. As always, one of the funnier maybe not funny, but one of the things that constantly happens with these kinds of things is parents don't know how to read. I should just mention that parents do not know how to read. It's been a thing for a while now, but generally what happens is kids will ask for thing, parents will buy them thing, not understanding that thing is intended for an older audience, and then are surprised when their kid starts, swearing or otherwise pointing out things that they're not supposed to know because it's not intended for them. The Book of Bill is one of those things. The Book of Bill is intended for older readers. It is intended for people who it is a new Gravity Falls book. It is intended for people who grew up with the series back when it first aired and are now adults like myself. But it's intended for the people who have been. Where it's been 8 years since Gravity Falls first aired, and they're probably a little bit older now, and not the people who are discovering it on Disney Plus or whatever, who are more so-ish within the target demographic of what it's supposed to be. So it's not intended for those kinds of people. But it has resulted in some really funny reviews on Amazon where people are like, "This book is satanic. It should not be read. It should not be read, and I implore parents to not buy this for the children." It's like, no, that's the whole point. It's literally made for adults. You are not supposed to buy it for children. But that happens anyway. But in case, the Book of Bill, what is it? Essentially, essentially, if you guys, this is going to be I'm going to do my best to kind of keep this semi-non-spoilery, but essentially, the Book of Bill is a book written from the perspective of the show's main villain, Bill Cipher. And it is in case of point, he's on the cover. There he is. There's our triangle boy. But the Book of Bill is interesting because it explores a lot. First and foremost, it's full of lore for the series, so I do recommend reading it for that alone. Again, it's for older audiences. So if you're not within the target demographic of this book, please don't buy it and read it. It is intended for people my age. It's not intended for again, as I said, it's not intended for the 12-year-old who discovered the series. Last week. And has been binge watching it on Disney Plus. And no, it's not for those kinds of people. It's for the people who actually watched the series when it was airing. It's full of darker-ish imagery, and of course, that's fun. And first and foremost, obviously, as I said, it's full of dark imagery because Bill, but also it's funny. It's got a lot of really great jokes in it. There's early on, first thing first, there's multiple chapters, but there's a joke where Bill makes fun of an old YouTube apology. So if you guys don't know, there's this, I don't know who the name of the YouTuber. All I know is that she's gone down in infamy as having one of the worst YouTube apologies ever, because it's literally just her playing her ukulele while kind of not really saying anything of substance about the fact that she did whatever she did. I don't know I don't know the name of the person. All I know is that she probably doesn't have a platform anymore. But the Book of Bill decides to make fun of that by by making a reference to it, claiming that, Bill made a quote-unquote apology video for things he's done in the series itself. And it's the thumbnail for the fake thumbnail for that video is a reference to that video that I just talked about, which is really funny. But also it also does, again, has a lot of disturbing imagery, but also a lot of, you know, dark lore implications and other things like that. For example, like this is one that's people have probably seen on social media, so I don't really mind spoiling it. But and I'm gonna spoil it, but also it's something that's been circulating a lot, and it's something that a lot of people know at this point. But essentially this book explains that it essentially recontextualizes the series by explaining in this book that Dipper heard his parents having an argument that he wasn't supposed to hear, and that's the reason they went out for the summer in the first place. And the implication is that his parents are likely getting a divorce, which is Jesus Christ. But yeah, it kind of recontextualizes a lot of the series, which is interesting. That's a really interesting little lore point, but there's also it goes into it. This is a book that's just like the surface level of things that are dark. It also goes into deeper detail about Bill's powers. It goes into it takes all of those to its logical extreme. But it's got a lot of things it's got a lot of fun things in it. So yeah, of course I'll be going through kind of sort of the book I'm not going to be like, you know, heavy major spoilers for anything. I will, however, go over some of the highlights and, you know, some of the funny things I read through while reading this book, because again, it's made for a darker audience. It's a bit darker and made for a more mature audience, but it's got some funny gags in it as well, which I feel like I should share with you. But yeah, I'm not gonna heavily spoil anything. I'm gonna try and keep this book review relatively spoiler-free. I'm just gonna go through some of the highlights that you can expect from the book. But in any case, the first section of the book is obviously dedicated to Bill himself. Obviously it goes into, you know, details about who he is, what powers he has, what makes him tick, those kinds of things. And this is where this has an actually really funny ability, a really funny joke in it. So there's a joke in this book. There's a section of the book of Bill that goes into his powers and abilities, and also his weaknesses. And one of the really funny things that's in this, there's also an interview in here of Bill himself, which is also funny, as where that aforementioned, you know, riffing on a bad YouTube apology video comes in. Because that is part of the thing in here. It goes through his, you know, it has an interview section and all that, which is funny. But what I want to go into is, you know, he has his powers, abilities, and weaknesses. Because in this book, it explains that, you know, Bill obviously does have weaknesses. Obviously, he's not like this. He's this really powerful villain, but he's also got obvious weaknesses. But one of the funny things this book does is that it lists his weaknesses, of course, but you know, because it's written by Bill, and it also has a lot of, and it also obviously has a lot of fourth wall jokes in it as well. But Bill in this book writes down all of his weaknesses, gets upset at people for reading those weaknesses, and then just randomly cuts to an excerpt from The Great Gatsby, which is, you know, a joke is that's just this required reading material that everybody has read and everybody knows the book by this point. Everybody knows The Great Gatsby. I don't think I need to explain what The Great Gatsby is. I'm pretty sure everybody is going to understand that, yes, this is required reading material. We know what this is. But, yeah, the joke is that, and obviously the joke is that, you know, he gets upset at you for reading weaknesses that he himself put in the book, and then writes down writes down a picture of an excerpt from The Great Gatsby, which is funny. But he's also got to test the worthiness to, you know, if you can handle some of the knowledge that he dishes out in the next section of the book. I'll get to that. He of course then proceeds to have a series of, you know, puzzles and tasks and other things that across multiple pages that he expects you to solve. And the joke is that you're not supposed to solve any of them because they're all a waste of time. It's funny. It's amusing. I very much enjoy that. But overall, this is a funny little start to the book. It does kind of explore Bill's character a little bit about, you know, that he's obviously one of these kinds of characters who isn't really super serious and likes to screw with people. And that of course comes off perfectly in this first section of the book. But then of course we get into what is it? Bill's Guide to Everything. And essentially this is just this entire section of the book is just Bill going over his various innermost thoughts about a bunch of different subjects. There's a lot of these in here. Like, for example, he goes into the minds of different characters. He explains how he went into the minds of different characters and what he thinks of each of them, which is, you know, it brings up some interesting, you know, insight into those kinds of things and those kinds of, you know, people that we know from the series itself. But and again, that's also where the aforementioned, you know, implication that there's a divorce pending in the Pines family future. That's where this comes from. But he's also got a couple of interesting sections as well. For example, he's got sections on, you know, urban legends, and also includes himself in that because, you know, Bill himself is sort of an urban legend. But there's also a section on the Mirror Realm, which is funny because there's an inside joke. There's an inside joke there about how Bill was originally supposed to be voiced by someone other than Alex Hirsch in the series itself, and that didn't wind up happening for a number of reasons. But in the book, they make fun of that. They make fun of that by pointing out that, you know, the original guy who was originally supposed to voice Bill is from the Mirror Realm. And also, appropriately, you have to hold the Mirror Realm page up to the mirror in order to properly read it, which is also fun. But you know, it's interesting. That's also interesting. But there's also a couple of interesting, like, there's a page on mind control, of course. There's also a really funny joke where there's also something really funny where he tries to gaslight people into thinking there are no secret codes in this book, because there's an entire 2-page spread of him going, there are no secret codes in this book, don't look for any of them. But it's a Gravity Falls novel, so of course there's secret codes and stuff in it. In any case, it's fun, that's quirky. But also, we find out in this section that Bill apparently has a fondness for silly straws. Like, there's just an entire page in this there's an entire chapter in this section of the book that is on silly straws, and I find that really interesting and funny. But there's a couple of interesting things. A lot of the subjects it goes into are interesting. Like for example, there's one entire thing. There's actually one that's actually downright wholesome, interestingly enough, where he goes into the meaning of life. But that particular section of the book is about how there is no meaning to life. You're supposed to find your own meaning in it, and I find that interesting. I do find that very, very interesting, because, you know, it's obviously very wholesome, because, you know, it implies that, you know, life's what you make of it. So do what you want to an extent, and go and find your own meaning in it, which I do kind of like as a thing. Like, because, you know, that's obviously is what the meaning of life is. Just make your own meaning out of life. There is no meaning. But also there's a really funny bit about how he goes into dating advice, and obviously all the dating advice is terrible because Bill somewhat this book does reveal that Bill did have a previous relationship that he heavily denies. But it does go into detail about his dating advice. And he also admits that he's not particularly great at giving dating advice, you know, because he's kind of bad at it. There's also a section in here where he points out that in this part of the book where he points out that he doesn't like the human body very much. Like in the series itself, he's been in the human body a couple of times, and points out that the human body is just kind of terrible from his perspective. Like, he does that, and also he frames he has an anatomy chart, but frames it in a way where he kind of implies that he wants people to kind of keep the way it's described is that he wants that every human has a secret surprise inside, and you should kill them to get to the secret surprise inside, which obviously is not true. Don't go and kill people to find the secret surprise. That's a joke. But he also goes into detail about how he does not like the human body because he just goes into detail about everything that's wrong with it and why he doesn't like it. It's honestly a really funny little gag. I like a lot of that. But Yeah, there's the entire section of the book is just like this. It's one of the bigger sections of the book because it goes into detail on a lot of the different subjects that he has knowledge on, which is interesting. And there are obviously a lot of for both lore implications, for the series, but also it's full of just stuff that he likes, which I do find it fun. It does go into some of Bill's hobbies and the kinds of things that he's into, which I do like. But in case it's at this point where we get into the latter half of the book, which is essentially a timeline of Bill from his humble-ish origins all the way up to the events of the series. It goes into quite a lengthy timeline of Bill. And all the things that he's done up until that point, his origins, meeting his crew, his various attempts to be in contact with humans throughout the ages. It's interesting. It's an interesting timeline of events. But what makes it really interesting is that it starts off with Bill's origins, of course. Like, that is something that the series has kind of hinted to, especially in like the finale. But it's interesting because I think it's established, I think, at this point that, Bill, quote unquote, liberated his home dimension. But what's interesting about that particular start of the story is that we actually learn that it's one of the few things Bill has done with his life that he genuinely regrets. It is an interesting idea, but it's to the point where we go into his origins, and the entire scenario of him, quote unquote, liberating his home dimension is just completely blacked out, other than the fact that it's clearly traumatized him, and he doesn't like reliving it. So we don't actually learn anything about what actually happened, just that Bill regrets doing it, and it's clearly one of the only things in his life that he actually regrets doing, which I do find kind of interesting. But in case it's at this point where he meets his crew. And we learn a lot of interesting details about his crew and the kinds of things, including that one of them, amorphous shape, apparently can only be seen if you're on LSD, which is funny. It's a funny little drug joke, but it implies that Bill is just high all the time, and the only other person who can see him is, of course, 8-Ball, which is interesting. But it does go into there's also some lore implications in there as well, because there's a member of his crew that is crossed out who you will recognize from a previous novel. It's interesting, but there's some interesting lore implications there. But it does go into for the most part, this section just goes into the details about his crew and explains who they are, where they're from, what kind of things they like, that kind of thing. But it's at this point where it does go into the timeline of Bill and his various contacts with humans. We do find out that he has had his fingers in a couple of different important historical events, which I do find kind of fun. First and foremost, it obviously goes into, his arrival at Gravity Falls, which of course is a major thing in the series that the series kind of touches on, but is gone into in more detail here. And in the meantime, it also explores all the other different humans he's contacted. First and foremost, he was around during the Middle Ages, and he contacted an actual wizard, who obviously tricked Bill, tried to trap him and turn him into a tourist attraction for the kingdom. But that's which is an interesting story. But he did successfully trap Bill, but Bill escaped. So that's an interesting idea. But it also explains a couple of different things that he's done. First and foremost, he was involved in the Salem witch trials. It's revealed that he both instigated and if you guys don't know, it's this very black era in history where people were executing other people for claiming they were witches. But in the book of Bill, it's revealed that Bill has actually been, using his power. That Bill actually used his powers to teach people actual magic, because he arrived in the Puritan settlement of Salem, Massachusetts. He realized that they were not fun for a number of reasons, because they had apparently outlawed imagination and considered anybody who was even remotely imaginative a witch, which, kind of explains the irrationality of the Salem witch trials to a T. But, and then decided to end the Salem witch trials by teaching the suppressed housewives of Salem, Massachusetts, actual magic by possessing a goat. Because, as he goes on to explain, goats are one of the only animals in the world who can be possessed and you can't tell. So he explains that it's his preferred vessel for, you know, possessing people and deceiving people, which I do find interesting. It also makes sense because goats are, well, shall we say, interesting. But he goes, but in any case, that's one of several historical events. He also goes into events about, you know, he also explains that during this time he also contacted, you know, the American. He also contacted the American. What is it? He made contact with a group of humans who apparently formed an anti-Bill society in the 1900s, which did not end well because, as you can probably expect, they eventually tried to get government funding, and as you can probably guess, telling a bunch of dignified politicians that there's a weird little triangle man that only you and your group of people can see, and are trying to hunt down to extinction, and try to kill him off. Obviously, does not need to. Obviously, that's gonna end poorly for everybody else. We also go into Bill's history with Time Baby as well, which I didn't mention, but is one of the earliest things that Bill does, where it apparently caused the extinction of the dinosaurs. So, you know, Bill's responsible for wiping out the dinosaurs, albeit by accident. So, yeah. But also it goes into more detail about how Bill was apparently mistaken for an alien at one point, because there's a joke about, you know, there's an obvious conspiracy about how everybody believes that there were aliens outside of Roswell, New Mexico, and it proceeds to make fun of that, which is really funny. But also during this period, we also find out that Bill did try to contact the U.S. government at one point, and gave them all nightmares, which is why his picture is on the back of the dollar bill, hence his name. But we do actually find out that you know, Bill explains, and this is where I'm gonna get a little political here, but so this book it goes on to explain that Bill contacted the U.S. government. The U.S. government, in response, then proceeded to redesign all of the important government buildings to be lead lined so he couldn't get in. And that is why politicians nowadays are so bad at their jobs. That's the in-universe explanation for why politicians suck. They are literally brain damaged, which is, you know, is kind of funny, but also kind of not, because politicians nowadays not super great at their jobs. I'll be perfectly honest with you. They're not super good at the whole making laws that are fair for everyone thing. That is unfortunately they are not great at that, and this book kind of gives a little tongue-in-cheek nod as to why. They are just it implies that they're brain damaged, which is awful, but also really funny because it's not technically true, but also it might as well be, considering some of the baffling decisions they make in Washington nowadays. But of course it's very amusing. But we also find out that Bill was also around for the dawn of animation, and there's a story in here about how he contacted a man who is not Walt Disney, but also is very much supposed to be Walt Disney. And because, you know, it's a book published by Disney, obviously they can't have the actual Walt Disney in the book that they published. That is obviously not a thing that they can do. But he goes into detail about how he contacted this legally not Walt Disney character. Contacted him, convinced him to make a series of shorts of Bill, with Bill in them. And then Bill tried to use those to trick people into doing what he wanted, but all that really happened was it caused a massive panic. And when not Disney realized that he had been tricked, he tries to tell his entire studio that, you know, a magical triangle made him do it, and that he will offer up any sort of reward for whoever can get rid of him. So, you know, Bill winds up leaving. But of course, there's also the little, what is it? I don't know specifically what this is referencing, but there's this sort of like these cutesy little, you know, decorations that Bill had commissioned by making contact with the owner of the person who made them. And I don't know what specifically what that's referencing, but I'm pretty sure it's referencing something. I don't know what it's referencing, but I know it's referencing something. I don't know. But, yeah, of course. So, yeah, that's pretty much the timeline of Bill. There's a lot of... I'm kind of just giving you a brief summary of what happens in the book, and what happens in this particular section of the book, because it goes into detail about a lot of different things Bill has done, and the list of things that he's been involved with, and the historical events he's helped impact are really funny. But it's also a little dark in some cases, and also there's some obviously adult jokes, but it goes into it's funny. There's some fun details in there, and I do kind of like it. But in case this is where we get into the point where we get into the more modern stuff, this is actually where I'm gonna stop for people who have not who have not watched the series yet. Obviously, like it does go into like I do like this section of the book. Because it obviously does go into detail about all of the things that Bill has done to, influence the modern day version of the story. But I'm not going to go into them because, frankly, if you have not seen the series yet for yourself, this book does kind of build on the original series a little bit. But and it also kind of explores, his relationship with a key central character who is obviously a major spoiler for the series itself, so I can't go into it all that deeply. But it is a fun section of the book, though. I did very much enjoy it because it is full of creatures we did not actually see before. Goes into further detail about some of Bill's powers by taking them to the logical extreme. I guess I can go into that. That Bill's powers are explained further, and explains that he can enter people's minds. Like, that is a firmly established thing. But the book goes into further detail of that by explaining that once Bill's inside your mind, he has access to everything that makes you, as well as all of your major functions that you need. So he can both manipulate memory to make you remember and forget things at the flip of a dime, but also that he can just shut down entire bodily functions and just mess you up, which is dark, and the book does frame it as such. But it also goes into detail by explaining that Bill's vessels don't need to be alive for him to enter their minds, and that's exactly what it implies. Bill can essentially become a zombie if he wants to, which is also terrifying. But also because Bill is in complete control, and obviously Bill can speak through the zombie and speak perfectly. Like he's not really limited to those kinds of things, and those kinds of things of like Bill getting power, Bill being able to speak, being limited in his speech because he doesn't have vocal cords because they've long since deteriorated because zombie. No, Bill can speak perfectly. He has access to his powers while within the zombie. This is a little terrifying as well, but obviously it is obviously a fun little insight into Bill, and overall I do like this book. And also I'm not gonna, again, there's another reason why I'm not talking about that. It kind of spoils the ending to Gravity Falls quite a bit as well toward the end of the book. So if you have not seen Gravity Falls yet, I do not recommend reading all the way to the end as well either. That said, it is intended for the audience that grew up with Gravity Falls, so I do kind of find it fun. So it is kind of intended for them. So if you have seen Gravity Falls, you can read through this safely, no problems. But I do recommend not, try not to. I recommend just kind of slowing your roll a little bit, because it will. If you're not caught up on Gravity Falls, this will spoil the ending for you. I will go into that right now, but obviously, but overall, I do like this book because it is interesting in that we don't really know a whole lot about Bill, and this book is just chock full of lore about him. It kind of explores his character a little bit more. This fits perfectly into the universe of Gravity Falls, which I do kind of like. But it's overall a fun book and a fun addition to the series, and I do recommend picking it up. But I do feel like I should end it with the reviews that the book got, because they pulled a very specific group of people to review the book, and I find it fun. And there's a reason Guillermo del Toro's on here, for example. I talked about him, But, and then there's a funny joke in here that the reason he reviews it so poorly is because there is a monster in the book that is somewhat named after him, but also not quite him, and also, obviously, Guillermo del Toro did not particularly take kindly to that. So, yeah, that makes his review a little bit funnier than anything, but it is amusing. But in case, I will go into detail about the reviews. So, in any case, I thought I liked things that were weird, but I was wrong. This book was too weird for me. I feel nauseous just thinking about the horrifying psychosis contained within. I am legally changing my name to Normal Al now and pushing all of my Hawaiian shirts out to sea on a barge. Avoid this book at all costs. Weird Al Yankovic. So yeah, this book was too weird for Weird Al, which is funny. And also, I found this arcane volume in a musty aisle at the most accursed of libraries. Nightly visitations by foul spirits commence almost immediately. It has affected my mind and my dreams, and it will destroy your sanity. For all that is good and holy, stay away from it, and whatever you do, do not read it. Guillermo del Toro. As I explained, there's a monster in here that is based on Guillermo del Toro, which is funny, and that kind of gives context to, the context that he doesn't like that he's in the book. He's in this book and he doesn't like it very much. That's pretty much the explanation that you need. But in any case, look, I hate to disagree with Guillermo Normal Al, but I love this thing. Ever since I read it, I keep hearing the screaming in my brain that won't stop. I'm buying a copy for everyone I know. We love Bill. We love Bill. We love Bill. Charlie Day. So yeah. Very amusing set of reviews on the back journal cover of the book. But in any case, there is one last thing I do want to go over before I actually end the review off, and that's the fact that there is an entire spread that the jacket obviously comes off. There's an entire spread. There's an entire two-page-ish spread in here of Bill. There's a document from the series that has been made into the book jacket, which is cool, and I like that a lot. But in case, that is my review of the Book of Bill. Obviously, I didn't try to go into anything too spoilery, and I also tried to kind of jump around sections and didn't really talk in detail about a lot of things, so that you can read the book for yourself and actually go and enjoy. Again, I'd recommend not picking up the book if you are not an adult. Do not do that. But especially since there's a lot of adult humor in this book, as well as just general dark imagery that should be kept far away from kids. I do not recommend the book if you're a child or faint of heart. But it is a fun book, and I do recommend it. But yeah, overall it's a fun book. Definitely happy to have it as part of my collection, and also it had been a while since I did a book review, so I figured I would review it. I thought that would be entertaining and fun. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the Book of Bill. I definitely enjoyed reviewing it for you guys. If you are reading the Book of Bill, again, there are codes. And the main one I know is that there is, in fact, a countdown timer to something on an obscure website that somebody found. But that's the main one I know. I have not been able to. I'll leave the actual solving of the book to the actual theorists in the Gravity Falls community, because there's a lot of you. And frankly, I don't really know a whole lot. And frankly, there's a lot of difficult puzzles in this. The puzzles have escalated since the original series, where it was simple ciphers, and now we have to do multi-step layer puzzles to find secrets and lore and those kinds of things. So obviously, it's a little bit more difficult to crack these puzzles, those kinds of things open. But I do recommend it. It is a fun book. If you want to absolutely pick it up for yourself, you can. It's available on Amazon, both in the red cover and the much more lore substantial gold cover versions. And also my sticker for my Barnes & Noble exclusive sticker fell off, which is unfortunate, but you can still tell it's the Barnes & Noble exclusive version because it's the gold cover and not the usual red cover. But yeah, there's two. I don't know. I may buy the red cover just to compare and contrast and find out what's different. But the gold cover is the definitive version, and I also should go in a bit more into lore details about the book itself, I guess, since we're wrapping up. But this book in lore can infect other books, and this is an interesting thing about because Alex Hirsch, I should mention, is an absolute legend, because he made lore for the book about how it can affect other books. And then the display at Barnes & Noble actually show that by him having bought a series of custom-made books, placing them in a circle on the bookshelf around the Book of Bill as a display, and doing that out of pocket because Disney wouldn't let him. So he just did that on his own. But which I do kind of find fun. But yeah, and also there is a Twitter account where a guy found a copy of the Book of Bill, a park ranger I think, and he then disappeared after finding it and trying to subsequently burn it. Poor guy didn't realize what he had gotten himself into, and now it's too late for him. It's unfortunate, but it happens. But in any case, that's my review of the Book of Bill. What did you guys think? Let's get discussing them in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. In any case, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. Be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It does really help me out. And you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks that are my way of saying thanks, so please go check that out. I would appreciate it. Again, link is down in the description. Please go check those out. Be sure to go and check out my Discord. Link is, again, down in the description. I'm trying to grow my little community over there, especially since I'm trying to do a Minecraft server for you guys, so hopefully you guys will be able to go and help and support that. But I'm trying to get that to grow and those kinds of things. But I'm working on it. I haven't finished it yet because there's still a lot to do. I'm renovating a map I found, but there's a lot to do, and I'm trying to get that going. So if you guys want to absolutely support it, be sure to go check that out. Be sure to go and check out my Twitch. Link is down in the description as well. We stream Saturdays and Sundays, so please go check that out. I would appreciate it. Again, link is down in the description. Please go do that. Check out check out my Twitter for updates and those kinds of things. But it's obviously I also post memes, retweet art, those kinds of things. All things you should go check out, and check out my Patreon for support. I would appreciate that. It's only a couple bucks a month. It does help me get closer to going full time, so I would appreciate it if you were to go and do that. And finally, go check out the videos linked in the end screen as well. The top video is the most recent video. It may or may not be this video. Whereas the bottom video is the video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me. So if you want to try something new, or see more of what you like, then be sure to check both of those videos out. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.